We're walking through a canal and there's already water starting to collect. And this time next month, hopefully, we'll be looking at the newest section of the Chesterfield Canal. I've been coming down here for years, watching this restoration being built piece by piece, but today's a bit different. We're actually going to walk through the new section before they put the water in. And as usual, we've got a bonus section as well. We're going from mile 0 to mile 46. So what does this incredible canal look like at either end?
Hi, that's on. Oh, who's that over my shoulder?
Hello, you alright?
Steve, caught above the cut.
How you doing?
Yeah, alright.
How exciting is this?
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've no doubt seen your fair share of cofferdams in the last...
Well, yeah, 1 or 2 recently. I'm going to see about another 3 today.
Steve's channel, Caught Above the Cut, he covers canal restoration and also current affairs like the canal breaches and rebuilding the canals, so give him a watch. George has just been explaining they're expecting to actually start putting water in this as early as next week.
Well, it's catching water already.
So we are inside the railway abutments. Incredible.
I love seeing this section of the restoration. I've actually been paying attention to these railway abutments for years, long before the canal restoration work began. And it wasn't that long ago that there were still railway tracks over these. And I think they really sum up the changing industrial and transport history of this area. The canal came first, then the mineral railway arrived, effectively taking over the job the canal had originally been built to do. Then the canal disappeared. Then the railway disappeared. The railway nearly made a comeback, and now it's the canal that's making a comeback.
It's a bit of water in here. We have a bit of rain overnight, amazingly. First time in months.
It did used to have a railway. It's a very, very skew bridge, so some very, very long metal beams went across here. It's not had, those were taken off in the 1970s when the canal was basically derelict, and the structure was then all infilled. Then once the track was basically removed, our volunteers, we got a permission from Network Rail initially to be able to just do some exploration of this, and eventually that expanded into basically fully excavating this structure. When we came to do the construction on this, you'll realise that basically behind us on either side we've got some big chunks of concrete. That's basically because when we dug down to find out where the foundations are for this structure, they were not quite as deep as we were expecting them to be. So we've had to reinforce this structure. So we were hoping just to put basically a layer of concrete along the bottom, and in the end what we've had to do is these quite big chunks of concrete to hold everything back. What you will have is that on the concrete there will be the coping stone. So you'll have seen as you came in the big stacks of stone. They will all be going on the top. That will be basically what will be visible. So to most people that are boating along it, you'll see a short bit of concrete and then the coping stone. Areas where we've got a bit more visible, we're brick facing like this. So you'll see wherever you see this is because water level will basically be about here. This bit here will all of these will have coping stones on as well. This is basically a ramp. So you've just walked along the towpath, and then that will go up behind us, and we'll follow that route up in a minute. This bit will then ramp down. So down there you'll find it's a bit lower. That's closer to water level, and that's to allow boaters to actually get on and off to be able to operate the lock. Boaters will generally, if they've got to moor up to be able to go and operate the lock, they'll moor up over there because this isn't wide enough for 2 boats. But there is a point for them to get on and off up there. We can walk all the way up to the lock. Just beware that after last night's rain, after 3 months of nothing at all, we do have a little bit of water in the bottom of it. Everything along this wall will be brick faced, that's why the ledge is there. Because this will all...
There's a view into the lock. It's a bit different. We were stood in there, right in there last April. Looking down into the chamber there, that's quite a drop. Obviously this bit where I'm stood wasn't constructed last time. It was just, if I remember rightly, it was just a kind of soil steps, makeshift steps down into the actual lock bottom. I just want a closer look at these abutments, look. The brickwork that's been covered up all these years. The foundations and the bits that give it the stability. Great opportunity to come and have a look at this. This is probably going to be the only time that you're ever going to be able to do this. Because once there's water in here, then you're not coming down here again unless something's gone catastrophically wrong. There's all your coping stones just ready to go on the sides. So we'll progress down, we'll have a look from the lock from above. Said it last time I was in here, didn't I? The different perspective you get from being at ground level, seeing this, such a different scale. It's the professionals that work down there. It's Tom Ingle from the BBC.
It's the first water in this new bit of the Chesterfield Canal. All right.
Took 2 takes that. As close as we've got to those lock gates, isn't it? It's the only lock gates of this design with this composite on a narrow canal on the UK system.
If you've not been following these updates, these aren't quite ordinary lock gates. The structure underneath the timber is a recycled composite material, made using material from old wind turbine blades.
Under the bridge. Old news now, isn't it? But what we haven't seen yet is the actual canal going underneath. We've not had this view yet of the channel going under the new bridge, have we? If all goes well, in a month's time this will be completed. Still a little bit of work going on, look, still a little bit of pointing, the coping stones that have gone in down here. But yeah, late September, it should all be completed. So this is the towpath they're walking on here. Be nice to come back, won't it? Be nice when we get that comparison shot in a couple of months' time when there's grass and flowers and vegetation and water. Have you been on one of the tours that's been organised today? 130 tickets were sold in less than 24 hours. Sorry, 180 tickets, not 130 tickets. So there's some real interest in this. There's been a lot of demand to get down here and see this in progress. So let me know if you've been on one of the tours and let me know what you think. There's a section here where the canal kind of protrudes. It kind of snakes its way between the bridge and the Bellhouse. Between the Transpennine Trail Bridge and the Bellhouse Bridge that we'll see in a little while. I don't know if you remember when I started filming these videos, we had some old stonework and a little bit, it was always wet and a little bit flooded, wasn't it, at certain times of the year. Those old railway abutments, I showed them many times in those early videos before they start to be developed. And that's where they're going to be going back. And you can see where the towpath look, showing the line of the canal down there. It's all part of the history of this area. So you get just an idea, look, on how much the canal narrows just through here. And it's opening out again here, and you'll see, again, we've covered this, haven't we? Previous videos, we've watched this being built and we've stood in this. It's narrow that you can see just coming up here, Bellhouse Bridge. So the bridge isn't getting built on this phase. They don't need to be built the bridge yet. But when this is a through canal, they will have to build the bridge to allow the farmer to access the land at the other side of the canal. Now you'll see what looks like a stop plank, looks like a lock gate. That's the stop lock. This section here between the lock, the Keith Ayling lock that we were looking at, way back there, under the bridge, up to here, they need to be able to drain this. And again, I've mentioned this in previous videos, they need to be able to drain this whole section of canal in 30 minutes if utility companies, Severn Trent Water, etc. need to get access to the mains that are underneath this section of the canal. And here we are coming into what we've been referring to as Bellhouse Basin. Not much of a basin, is it? More like a winding hole, really. This is where your boats will be coming to turn around. This will be the new end of navigation just up here. And this little section here, I suppose that's the start of the puddle bank, that's the start of the next section. So I'm assuming this is all ready for water now. It's got its lining on. We saw the white geosynthetic lining that went underneath, didn't we, as they were constructing this. And that's the overflow, just there, just at the end.
I've seen a lot of questions this week about filling the canal with water and how that will work and when. They'll start by gradually filling this top section first, which may have already started by the time you're watching this video. The rest of the canal will be gradually filled over the course of the next few weeks. Don't forget, this pound is actually higher than the pound before the lock, and when this canal is in use, water will need to be pumped up from below the Ayling lock. The pound from here will be a whopper, stretching all the way to Killamarsh.
I've never stood here. This is a new perspective for me. And you can just, if it's coming across on camera, the difference in elevation between the end of this and looking down onto the rest of the puddle bank. We mentioned subsidence many times on previous videos, haven't we? And nothing sums up that phrase, that situation that they've got down here more than this shot here. Can you get a feeling of the height difference there? Look, on the banking at the top of the canal that Tom stood on there. If you watched the last video, I made a statement about it being 30 years that they've been restoring this canal. They've restored 12 miles in total up to now. I wasn't trying to be controversial or argumentative or sarcastic in any way with the trying to highlight that they've been doing this for 30 years. I really hope it didn't come across that way. I was more trying to reflect on what they have already achieved, just more trying to remind people that they have restored an awful lot already.
Don't, please. Like, yeah, people have asked me about how we're going to stop boats hitting it, and I've gone, don't worry about that. At some point we'll probably put some timber across it.
Coping stones on top now.
Yeah,
I can't reach over there.
That's pretty much
Put the camera up.
I've been making these Chesterfield Canal restoration updates for 4.5 years now. I genuinely hope they've helped raise awareness of what's going on here and why they're doing this. But I just thought I'd share a few numbers from my personal journey with this restoration. Now, YouTube's telling me that I've had over 200,000 people watch these videos. Not a massive number in the grand scheme of YouTube, but for me that's quite big. Around 2/3 of those are from the UK, and we've got people watching from all over the world, as we found out when I asked where people were watching from. Biggest hitters are Australia, USA and Canada. And also, I did notice that 78% of people who watch the videos aren't subscribed. So if you've been following this restoration and you haven't subscribed yet, it's completely free and you'll get to know when we've got a new update out on this project. From here, you can finally see what we've been looking at on the ground. The lock, the new channel running through the old railway structures, and it eventually reaches Bellhouse down here. All these separate construction sites we've been following are starting to look like one joined up canal.
Oh, it's breezy up here. Right, let's have a look from the bridge then, the usual vantage point where we've been walking.
We spent most of this video looking at a few hundred metres of a brand new canal at Staveley, but this is part of a much bigger waterway. So I thought we'd finish by going right to the other end. We've just hopped up 5 miles to the Chesterfield end.
Tapton Lock, the Chesterfield Canal Trust, they've just celebrated the 1st anniversary since taking over the building behind me there. And even better news is that they've managed to secure a long-term lease. Is that the right word, lease? On this. Just enjoyed a nice coffee and a slice of granola and a Kit Kat. Lovely to see it so busy as well. No spare tables. Of course, we already know Madeline. We're very familiar with Madeline, don't we? But this is the other trip boat, John Varley II, that operates on this half of the Chesterfield Canal, or one of 4 trip boats the Chesterfield Canal Trust run. But for this bonus feature, I'm first going to go in search of mile 0 of the Chesterfield Canal.
The actual mile zero, I'll be honest, I'm not quite sure specifically where that point is. But I'm not going to delve into that too much on this video, because I am working on a future video related to that. Because if we do look back over the historical maps, we can see various wharfs in different places over time. Most people might know this as the official start of the Chesterfield Canal. Tapton Mill Bridge, just a stop lock, not an actual lock that drops or raises the canal up, this one. But if we head further in towards Chesterfield, historically this was still a navigable section of the Chesterfield Canal. To be honest, I don't know when a boat last used this section, but the end of the Chesterfield Canal as its own entity, as its own body of water, starts just here. You have to forgive the greenery and the weeds. And if you can make it out, going that side of that bush is the River Rother, and going this side is the Chesterfield Canal. This is where it separates. This is where it gets its water from. So everything between here and Staveley, the new development at Staveley, is taking its water from here, from the River Rother. So that's mile zero. But what about the other end of the Chesterfield Canal? Let's go and find out. So from mile 0 to mile 46 of the Chesterfield Canal, this is West Stopwith, a place we've mentioned so many times in videos over the years. I've never actually shown you here, have I? So the canal's wound its way through northeast Derbyshire, through South Yorkshire, and for the majority of its course through Nottinghamshire. And here it is, on the banks of the River Trent. This is where the Chesterfield Canal exits. So is this the start? Is this the end? I suppose it depends on the journey you're on, doesn't it? Well, the boat's ready to escape. And here is the Trent. I don't know if you can make it out on camera, just how fast this is moving. This is tidal here. The tide will be coming in from looking at the water flow. I'm hoping we're going to be able to see some of the boats exiting while I'm here. You've seen the lock keeper, he's just taken a phone call and he's gone off. People look like they're getting ready for some activity. The water level is dropping in the lock. That was a treat, wasn't it? I wasn't expecting to be treated to that. My brief visit here. Hopefully both those boats are leaving with good memories of the Chesterfield Canal. Here is the lock, filling back up with water now. Got the next two boats just going into the lock there. Hopefully coming to the far end of the Chesterfield Canal today just gives you a little bit of perspective about what they're trying to do with this canal. So I do appreciate not everybody really knows where it goes, and
There are people asking, well, where does the canal go? Some people think it goes into Sheffield. I know the canal is a little bit isolated, but you know, there's nothing that the Chesterfield Canal or anybody associated with it can do about geography. A lot of people think this is a really, really beautiful canal, well worth the special effort to get up here and get on this 46-mile length, as it will eventually be when it's fully restored. I will admit that I do neglect this end of the canal. I generally don't tend to venture any further east than Wakesop. That's not on purpose, it's not for any particular reason. It's just my local area. It's nice to come to a different section of the Chesterfield Canal. I do need to get up and investigate and dig into some of the stories on this more eastern section, don't I? It's different industry, it's a different landscape. It's almost as though it's a different canal. Just had a walk through from West Stockliffe to, what's this place called again? Misterton. All the locks we've kind of seen and discussed on the Chesterfield Canal restoration, obviously, are narrow locks. But the section here, the section east of Retford, these are all wide locks. The canal was wide at this end.
We've spent most of today walking through a canal that isn't quite a canal yet, and yet we finished at the other end watching boats actually using it. A huge thank you to Rod and George for their unrivaled knowledge of this canal and its restoration, to O'Brien's who are doing the work and letting us on site, and to everyone at the Chesterfield Canal Trust for inviting us down today and giving us the opportunity to walk through the new section before the water goes in. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you for watching these updates and following along with the restoration journey. We'll be back again soon, where hopefully we'll be able to look at our reflections on the surface of the water on the UK's newest section of canal. Thanks for watching, we'll see you on the next one. Ta-ra!